Welcome to the Miller Report, Real Clear Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. Today we're looking into Nancy Rommelmann's latest investigation where she spoke with the IRS whistleblowers in the Hunter Biden case. Joe Ziegler and Gary Shapley are now back in Washington, but this time not as whistleblowers, but as senior advisors helping to reform the IRS. Ziegler, a veteran IRS special agent, and his colleague Shapley were once at the center of a political firestorm after raising concerns about the federal investigation into Hunter Biden's unpaid taxes. Their 7-year pursuit uncovered what they say was clear-cut evidence of tax evasion. More than $8 million in unreported income from foreign sources like Ukraine, China, and Romania, along with fraudulent deductions, including payments to prostitutes and luxury club memberships. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the agents say that they were stonewalled by higher-ups at the Department of Justice and the IRS, denied search warrants, blocked from interviews, and eventually removed from the case entirely. The tipping point came when they learned Hunter Biden would avoid all charges under a proposed plea deal that later collapsed in court. Their decision to go public in 2023 made them targets. Ziegler was doxxed, Shapley faced pressure to resign, and both were labeled as political tools, despite Ziegler identifying as a Democrat. They testified before Congress, endured media scrutiny, and even personal fallout. Ziegler's marriage didn't survive the ordeal. Yet in a dramatic turn, both men are now poised to lead reform from within. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced in March that Ziegler and Shapley would join the agency's senior leadership team in 2026. Their goal? To restore trust and ensure equal treatment under the law. Hunter Biden, meanwhile, was granted a full pardon by President Biden on his last day in office, despite previous promises not to intervene. As for Ziegler and Shapley, they say they never set out to make headlines. They just wanted to do their jobs and now maybe change the system from the inside. I'm joined now by the lead investigator, Nancy Rommelmann. Nancy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, through your reporting, what did you learn about the value of whistleblowers to democracy and those who support them?
Well, I learned what a terrible position it would be on to be hired to do a job and then have the people that hired you stopping you from doing your job. Sort of like if you hired me to make donuts and every day I made a donut because I was a really good donut maker and you're like, yeah, we don't want that donut. And like to have been doing this job for a while and then to say, well, it must be me. Like I must not be understanding something here. But then as it accrues, realizing, wait a second, I'm being forced to not do the job I was hired to do. And the frustrations of that, and then getting to a point where you realize you actually have to go against the bosses.
And so once you go against the boss, how does that then, create lasting change?
Well, I mean, it's a funny thing, Maggie, because as I put toward the end of the article, so, before we get into the details of it, the two whistleblowers we're talking about who had worked with the IRS for almost a combined 3 decades at this point, Joe Ziegler and Gary Shapley, the frustrations they experienced really were several years before they decided to blow the whistle. Then they went before Congress and, a whole bunch of things happened, which we'll talk about. Now, they sort of landed on top. How did that happen? Because the Trump administration decided Scott Besser to bring them into Treasury. Next year, they will go to the IRS in senior leadership positions. Is some of that tit for tat? Is some of that the Trump administration going, okay, you're going to prevent the sitting president's son? Because we're talking about Hunter Biden tax case here. Of course it is. That's politics. And yet, these are agents that are very good at their jobs, being allowed to do their jobs. So I guess it is a victory in a way.
I mean, politics obviously played a major role in this case. Your piece kind of discusses the American oligarchy when the son of a president is put in the hot seat around an election and the people who speak out are suppressed. Do we have a problem with the way that information is controlled in our country?
I mean, I think everybody would agree that we do. We as journalists can only do our best. Are you going to have certain journalists or organizations batting for team A or team B? Yes. Do I like it? No, I don't. I don't think that's our job as journalists. It's going to happen. All we can do is continue to try to push the stories as we find them and as they're told to us, which is exactly the same thing that Ziegler and Shapley did. I got to tell you, talking to these men over a long period of time, the frustrations that they encountered they were frustrating to me. And that they stayed on it is really laudable. And if I can put in a pitch for our profession, you need to do that too as a journalist. You need to keep trying to get at what the story really is in order to make change. And I think that this is what these guys did in their roles. But yes, we do have a problem. And it's because of the way we consume media. It's what our Twitter feed shows us. I did have some satisfaction last week realizing that I had retweeted regarding the tariffs, both Mother Jones and the National Review. It's like, go to a different pond and get some information if you want to get a slightly rounder story.
And so, what was your biggest takeaway from speaking to these gentlemen? But also, what was your biggest unanswered question that's still lingering with you?
I was really frustrated for them. They had uncovered things that in the course of an investigation, had it been you, had it been me, or Joe Q Public, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Hey, Nancy Rommelmann didn't pay her taxes. Hey, Nancy Rommelmann was given a 3.4 carat diamond from a Chinese energy company executive. I don't know, this is some red flags. Maybe we better look into this. Like, this was, as they told me, it should have just been a normal case. And when they were told initially, like, no, you need to set the bar higher, because, maybe they should have anticipated this in 2018, 2020, when we were all like at each other's throats. The Dems and the Republicans and Trump animus and distrust of Biden, but they didn't, because they are people that work with numbers and work with data. So it's like, yeah, okay, I know you feel this way or that way, but this is the way it is. I guess I was impressed that they just kept pushing. They just kept pushing. They used each other as allies when they were really isolated. They were isolated both quietly within their departments and then publicly. Like, people were trying to humiliate them. People were not giving them, promotions. It was a scary time, and yet they held on. And look, we know that Hunter Biden's father pardoned him for everything. Okay, that's politics. But now we know the story. We know the full story from the people that uncovered it. You can maybe not believe it. You can maybe believe something else if it aligns with your politics or your desires. But these men fought to have the truth told. I think that's important.
So, because of Biden, obviously doing that for his son, is this just completely shut? Is there nothing else that can go on with what these men did? It's just kind of like, just move forward and move into your next roles, right?
There is one, as far as I understand it, there is one person that can pardon you for federal crimes, and that is the President of the United States. So that's happened. Okay, do I really, really care deeply that Hunter Biden, who I feel sad, the guy was a self-admitted crack addict. Nobody wants a human being to go through this. He made terrible mistakes. I'm not even going to get into how he and his father may have benefited. I mean, we know he did benefit financially. As I put in the piece, how much Joe Biden profited from this will be debated till only cockroaches roam the earth. Let's put all that aside. I don't really care about Hunter Biden. I do care about the process. I do care if we have a system in place and we are going to agree that we're all going to get taxed, sadly, we have to have a system in place that works for everybody. And that is exactly what Shapley and Ziegler told me over and over and over. You cannot have a two-tiered system of justice. One that works for the people that can be protected, and the other for the little guys, which is the rest of us. And so have we strengthened that position by allowing these men's stories to go forward and to have them in more senior positions? Maybe. I'll be Pollyanna and say yes, maybe we do.
Do you think that, they're going to do any sort of reforms? Did they speak to you about that in these advisory roles? What do they want to see changed?
Okay, so I don't know from this date forward what changes they want to make, but they've repeatedly said we do need changes in court in order to have a better tax system for everybody. I'm sorry, I don't know what those changes are, but yes, I do know that they want the system to work better. So let's see.
All right. Well, anything else you think is important to add about your investigation, speaking with these gentlemen?
I was really I was really honored to be able to talk to them because they went through a really hard deal starting in 2018, and it really didn't get resolved until December 2024 when the U.S. Office of Special Counsel basically said you were retaliated against and you were taken off the Hunter Biden case inappropriately. People can read about that in the article, and to have that relief that they had, and to now be put in a position where they could do the jobs they just always ever wanted to do. I was really glad to be able to help tell their stories.
And I mean, the personal impact that also had, not just with the friends, not just with the colleagues, even a marriage. It's just important to know that these were also real people whose lives were affected by just doing their job.
That's right. And people get sacrificed to these terrible political squabbles. It can be a bloodbath, but they've emerged. So it was nice to be able to tell this, and also for RCI. So thank you.
Nancy, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
That was it for the Miller Report, Real Clear Journalism. I'll see you next time.